Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record show that all the witnesses answered in the affirmative. You may be seated.
Okay, guys, welcome to the Vetted Podcast. We're back. Amy's back. She was in France at a chalet, swimming in lakes, enjoying the south of France. See, that's the beauty of living in the UK and Europe, y'all. I'm in Texas. The best I can do is go down to the local little, hole in the ground that we fill with water. It's muddy, and I get down with the pigs. That's how we do it in Texas. Anyway, yes, we're here to talk about this amazing bombshell UFO hearing that happened. It's, of course, I've never seen the UFO community like so the movement dynamic, like just the Reddit was just crazy off the walls of people engaging, right? Like YouTube video everywhere, Twitter, you name it. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. Right. This is what people have been waiting for, this moment, essentially, some guy to come out and say the U.S. is hiding UFOs. I know where they're at. These are the names. These are the places. Go check it out. And that's what happened. Under oath. That's kind of nuts. I mean, that's not a guy talking to a journalist, right? Like doing an interview, saying on a podcast. These are two Congress people. So he opened, right? He basically pointed. So now we can go where he pointed. And if the thing isn't there that he said, then we can say, well, you were mistaken or you were correct. I think there is like a finality attached to this that wasn't there before, which is interesting. I don't know. Is this going to be one of those, like, be careful what you asked for, or I don't know. So, I don't know. It's very exciting. What are your thoughts just off the bat of this? Just free form. I'm curious. I mean, you haven't seen the hearing.
Yeah, no, I must. Yeah, full transparency.
No problem.
As I said last week, so I was not as in tune with all of this, and not, I didn't have as much sight of all of this as I would usually like to, but. I think what you just said there, Patrick, about it being under oath is incredibly important. So obviously when you're talking to a journalist, there's on the record, off the record, and it doesn't really matter what you say. No one's going to come after you legally or otherwise. But to discuss these sorts of issues, and I mean, I'm sure you're going to tell me that claims were made that were quite substantial. To do that under oath is pretty significant, I would suggest.
Yeah, I absolutely.
Yeah.
That is the big difference. So, yeah, correct.
Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Let the record show that all the witnesses answered in the affirmative. You may be seated.
Sebastian, bam, welcome.
Hey guys, how's it going? Sorry for the delay.
Oh, please, no problem. We're just jumping in. We literally just started, so
yeah.
You're good to go here. I was just asking Amy her random thoughts of just first thoughts on the hearing here. That she hadn't seen it yet, but knows that they testified under oath, and that being like probably the biggest factor, the biggest difference between this story and just telling it like she said, to a journalist or on a podcast or whatever, at a conference, whatever the case may be. This is quite literally, you could be held right to a different standard. You could be punished by law. Your reputation ruined, right? Everything about him completely decimated if he's caught lying. And what's funny is he's already being accused of lying immediately after the hearing by Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. who's a name we've mentioned many times. I've included him in many videos. He's the head of Arrow. So he's the head of the current UFO task force. And he came out with a letter afterwards that we'll get into here in a minute. Yeah, not directly naming David Grusch, but saying the witnesses, said false things, so, and he's one of the witnesses. So anyway,
I mean, is there any repercussion for that?
Yeah,
Okay.
they can prosecute if they can. I mean, you have to build a case.
Yeah.
You have to say, we have proof, we can charge you, and we're going to go after it. I mean, you have to have the motive to actually want to go out after it and follow it through. He made this statement on his own personal LinkedIn. So this wasn't an official release from the DOD. And in fact, the DOD said, that's his personal statements. We have nothing to do with that. And then he deleted it over the weekend. Last night, he deleted it. So that's an interesting update to that story.
Incredible,
anyway.
yeah. So what was your opinion on the whole thing, Patrick, on the meeting?
Yeah.
I mean, did it very, was it like as you expected, or did it exceed your expectations, or what do you think?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, first of all, we live streamed it. First live stream. It's actually the first live stream I've ever done, like for, either Lone Star Plate or Vetted. I think I've done a couple in the past, just randomly. Like, I'm not used to it. So that was interesting to do that. First of all, that was great. So thank you to everyone who tuned into that and watched and commented, and we conversed about it. I think it met my expectations. I don't know if I really had any. I was more curious, more than anything, just to see. I guess my expectation was he going to say the same thing he said in interviews under oath? Would he change the wording? Would he twist it just a little bit to where it was different? Because now he's pressed, right? Oh, this is under oath. Oh shit. I said this before, but really what I meant was this. That didn't happen. He did say those same things for the most part. Now, granted, they didn't have all the time in the world to talk about everything. And there was 3 witnesses. So he wasn't the only witness, David Grusch. But yes, he made the most explosive claims. He made the claim that was the most important, I think, to follow through on, which is, there's crashed UFOs and bodies. I know where they're at. I'll tell you. So you can go check, right? That's what we want to know. And he did bring up that they have harmed humans. That came up in the hearing, and that's been a viral clip about the hearing that, wait a second, the UFOs and aliens have harmed us?
Yeah.
Now, granted, they don't call them aliens in the hearing. They never use that word. They use non-human intelligence or non-biologicals, or I don't even know, or I'm not even sure what non-biological means, or biologicals or non-human biologicals, or, which people are pointing out could be a dog or a rat or frog. It's a non-human biological. It's like, well, yes. Anyway, they don't use the word aliens, but that's clearly what they're getting at, extraterrestrial. So, it's fascinating. So, look, the 3 witnesses, just to go over real quick. Ryan Graves, he was a Navy pilot. Here, I have a list real quick just to give. Ryan Graves, former Navy pilot who has spoken out about encountering UAP on training missions. Graves is now the executive director of Americans for Safe Aerospace. It's an aerospace safety advocacy organization. Basically, he set it up to where pilots can go and report their sightings in a nice, secure way in one place. Then you had retired Commander David Fravor, who was among Navy pilots, part of the Navy's Black Aces Squadron. Otherwise, we know them as Top Gun. The now famous Tic Tac shaped object that was captured in 2004 on video during a flight off the coast of Southern California. And then you had David Grusch, the main man of the hour, the man right in the middle of the 3 witnesses. He is the former Air Force and intelligence official who was a member of the previous Pentagon task force that investigated UAP. Grusch is a whistleblower who, in a June interview with News Nation, accused the government of a cover-up he became aware of as a member of the National Reconnaissance Office, the agency that operates U.S. spy satellites. That's interesting. So, yes, he came out and said those things. The other 2 guys basically just told their sighting stories, and there wasn't really any too much new information. There was 2 new bits that came out like in the hearing that people hadn't heard before. One was a sighting that Ryan Graves brought up about a red sort of big square sighting over an Air Force base.
Certainly. In the 2003 timeframe, a large group of Boeing contractors were operating near one of the launch facilities at Vandenberg Air Force Base when they observed a very large 100-yard sided red square approach the base from the ocean and hover at low altitude over one of the launch facilities. This object remained for about 45 seconds or so before darting off over the mountains. There was a similar event within 24 hours later in the evening. This was a morning event, I believe 8:45 in the morning. Later in the evening, post-sunset, there were reports of other sightings on base, including some aggressive behaviors. These objects were approaching some of the security guards at rapid speeds before darting off. And this is information that was received through one of the witnesses that have approached me at Americans for Safe Aerospace.
Was this documented in any official form, whether it was a police blotter?
Yes, they had official documentation and records from the event that the witness held over the years.
And then Matt Gaetz actually described a picture he saw privately, and he said no one else in Congress has seen it. He's the only one. He just saw it right before the UAP hearing from the military. He was in a military SCIF, they call it, a secured compartmented information facility where like you can't have cell phones or no electronics. You sit in a secure room and they'll show you or give you information. And they showed him this unidentified flying object, and he described it as just like unbelievable, just like foolproof in his mind.
Several months ago, my office received a protected disclosure from Eglin Air Force Base indicating that there was a UAP incident that required my attention. I sought a briefing regarding that episode and brought with me Congressman Burchett and Congresswoman Luna. We asked to see any of the evidence that had been taken by flight crew in this endeavor and to observe any radar signature as well as to meet with the flight crew. We were not afforded access to all of the flight crew. And initially, we were not afforded access to images and to radar. Thereafter, we had a bit of a discussion about how authorities flow in the United States of America, and we did see the image. And we did meet with one member of the flight crew who took the image. The image was of something that I am not able to attach to any human capability, either from the United States or from any of our adversaries. And I'm somewhat informed on the matter, having served on the Armed Services Committee for 7 years, having served on the committee that oversees DARPA and advanced technologies for several years. When we spoke with the flight crew, and when he showed us the photo that he'd taken, I asked why the video wasn't engaged, why we didn't have a FLIR system that worked. Here's what he said. They were out on a test mission that day over the Gulf of Mexico. And when you're on a test mission, you're supposed to have clear airspace. Not supposed to be anything that shows up. And they saw a sequence of 4 craft in a clear diamond formation for which there is a radar sequence that I alone have observed in the United States Congress. One of the pilots goes to check out that diamond formation and sees a large floating, what I can only describe as an orb. Again, like I said, not of any human capability that I'm aware of. And when he approached, he said that his radar went down, he said that his FLIR system malfunctioned, and that he had to manually take this image from one of the lenses, and it was not automated in collection, as you would typically see in a test mission.
Yeah, again. This is, look, what more do we want?
Yeah.
Grusch said the main thing. To me, all the other stuff, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
He said where to go find the bodies and where to go find the craft and who the names involved. And like, what more do we want? Now, he didn't say it publicly in the hearing. He said, I'll tell you privately to the Congress people, like right after the hearing, we have to go to a secure place and I can tell you this information.
Wow.
And supposedly, right, that was last Wednesday. Supposedly that has already happened.
For the record, if you were me, where would you look? Titles, programs, departments, regions, if you could just name anything. And I put that as an open question to the three of you.
I'd be happy to give you that in a closed environment. I can tell you specifically.
Thank you. Commander Fravor?
And I would say, and I've told people that you have to know where to look. They're not going to divulge it to you because of the classification levels. But if you know where to look and who to talk to, which is exactly what Mr. Grusch can point you, then you have them.
Okay. Mr. Graves?
I was an operator, so I was depending on folks like Mr. Grusch to do that homework.
Okay. Thank you very much. I yield back to the chair.
So, what's
Do they
next?
know?
I don't know. How does that work? Is this place just going to hide it? Are they just going to show up and go, show us your aliens? And they're going to be like, there's nothing here. And they go, okay. What's going to,
Yeah.
are they not, is it just like you look on the, you go, when you walk into a corporate building and they have a map in the lobby of like on the floor where everything is that what it's going to be like? Oh, aliens on floor 7. Let's go there. Of course not. This stuff's going to be hidden. So it's like we knew Area 51 supposedly had alien stuff and nothing's happened there, right? So I don't know how, yes, that's exciting, but we also should hold our breath because what does that mean? They're going to go in with a SWAT team and take this craft out. I don't know what people expect now from that I am curious about. How far can they take that, to go investigate those names and places? So
I thought it was quite interesting what Mick West had to say, right? Did you see his comments? He said, well, I believe that they believe what they're saying, right? So they're not lying, right? But
correct.
It's not a correct representation of the truth, even though they think it might be that way, right?
Sure.
I thought that was interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. He said that a lot about, he's pretty much said that since he started debunking about these people. He's always said that about anybody with sightings or abduction stories. He's like, I don't think they're lying. I think they believe what they're saying. I think they just misinterpreted what happened to them. And I that's totally a possibility. 100%, for sure. I don't know.
Which I guess does make a difference, right? If it's a difference to have someone who just doesn't get it right because they're confused, or it could be difficult anyway. What's the right interpretation of what you can see, right? Arguably there are difficulties in that, but if at least you have integrity, right? That makes it's a difference, right?
I would say this, that means there's a lot of confused people.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people saying stuff. So that would just mean there's a lot of confused people. And that, what's the probability there as you start to add more and more people that are credible and reputable that say these things? What becomes the probability that they're all confused? Is that possible? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like, how is that? That's also odd. That also becomes odd because David Grusch under oath testified that he put this story or investigation together based on 40 witnesses. He finally gave more detail. That is a new detail. 40 witnesses that, helped bring this together. So that's interesting. That's 40 people that are just lying to him. They're confused.
Yeah.
And those aren't the only people involved. That's just who he's saying he based his investigation on. So, I don't know. It's, again, I don't think we can speculate, we can theorize, at the end of the day, he gave us a place on a map. So we go check it out.
Yeah, that's what we said we wanted. We discussed this a couple of weeks ago and we said we wanted locations. And I know it's not necessarily public, but we wanted locations and pointing fingers at the map, like you said. So
that's what we got. Yeah, that's literally what we got. And it was explosive. It was exciting. It has to be the most watched oversight hearing of all time. I mean, it had over 1 million views. When you look at the other ones, they have like 2,000. Like nobody watches those things. Nobody cares. It's C-SPAN. Like literally nobody could care. It's boring politics.
Yeah.
But man, did people turn out for this.
Yeah.
It was packed. I'm glad I didn't go to the hearing. There were so many people at this thing. I mean, 90% of people didn't even get in the room.
Yeah.
Everyone was turned away. So many people there. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Like there was a lot of action outside of it. Bipartisan, yeah, exactly. Bipartisan support. That was another notable thing from the hearing. You had Republican, Democrat, didn't matter. Everyone was interested.
Yeah.
Nobody was like throwing shade. You had all the Congress people fascinated by this. I mean, that you could tell on their faces. They were just like eyes open, like jaw open, like this can't be happening. Like, and then asking like, so alien extra, like they don't even know what to say. They're so fumbling over their words of like, how do I even ask these questions that this guy is claiming? This is insane. But completely fascinated. And I think they were blown away by, wait, you'll give us names and date? Like, oh, okay. Well, then they just took him more seriously when that started to, I mean, they took him way more seriously. And I mean, it is fascinating. This is fascinating. But look, let's get to like what Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick said, because that is interesting. So I brought up at the beginning, he's the director of ARROW, the All-Domain Resolution Office that studies the UAP phenomena currently. And he put out a letter on his private LinkedIn that then got shared. So it got leaked out. So he didn't release this publicly. So you could argue whether you think he thought it would get leaked or what, whatever.
Yeah.
But let's see here. Let me read part of it because it is interesting. So he says, first of all, he says, let me begin by saying that the following are my own personal observations and opinions, and they don't necessarily represent official DOD or IC positions. So he said, yesterday, the Subcommittee on National Security, the Border, and Foreign Affairs held an open hearing on UAP, during which a government cover-up of extraterrestrials was alleged. I wholeheartedly, that just sounds absolutely insane to say that out loud. Right? I wholeheartedly applaud congressional efforts to get to the truth about what UAP are and the risk to both pilot safety and national security. I am absolutely committed to transparency on both the historical mission and the operational mission. As a director of ARROW's amazingly talented, devoted, and highly motivated team. However, I cannot let yesterday's hearing pass without sharing how insulting it was to the officers of the Department of Defense and intelligence community who chose to join ARROW, many with not unreasonable anxieties about the career risk this would entail, that have been working diligently, tirelessly, and often in the face of harassment and animosity to satisfy their congressionally mandated mission. They are truth seekers, as am I, but you certainly would not get that impression from yesterday's hearing. So he goes on to say, we'll put a link to the letter. Again, he did delete it. So there probably maybe some pushback from inside. I don't know, but he, whatever. But he does, it was confirmed that it was his. So there's no, ambiguity there. But he does go on to like say that, David Grusch didn't necessarily work in this UAP task force. So here at the end, I'll read it. He says, also to be clear, none of the whistleblowers from yesterday's hearing ever worked for ARROW or was ever a representative to ARROW, contrary to statements made in testimony and in the media. And he also claims that David Grusch never reached out to him. That's interesting because on the News Nation interview, he's asked point blank and he's like, yeah, I talked with Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and I showed him the stuff. He has my number. He can call me. So that's interesting. The guy in the letter, he's saying like, we've never made contact. I don't know about any of this stuff. So how could I have investigated it? Then he goes and tells Congress about this stuff, making it seem like we didn't do our job, right? So there is some conflicting stuff there. I don't know. What do y'all? It's insulting to the defense community. That's what he's claiming here. So a little infighting about what's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Does it affect anything? Does it change anything?
Has there been
You
any
know.
sort of counter reaction to that?
From who? From him or?
Yeah.
No, he's been
No.
silent. There's been no like
Okay.
other statement. The only
Yeah.
statement that got put out was the DOD
Yeah. Okay.
from Susan Go, who does normally the press releases, saying again, just these were not our opinions.
Yeah. Okay.
You know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But they kind of did mention a little bit about the hearing, like on the tail end of that statement, like these are not our opinions, but you know, we also are aware of the hearings yesterday, and we, you know, they kind of just reiterate their commitment to finding the truth and so
Right,
it's nothing burger.
Boilerplate stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's you're right. It's interesting, infighting, and you know, I think we've discussed this before, aren't we all? You know, on the same mission here.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't really understand why there needs to be that sort of tone and language and all of that kind of stuff. You know, we've spoken before about people being mean to Mick West and others.
Oh God, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Man, people are ripping him apart right now.
After off the back of this more so, or just okay.
Yeah, well, way more.
Okay,
people after the hearing, people were celebrating like it's over. UFO disclosure. We know we're not alone. Like it happened. They were celebrating, and they were like tweeting Mick West and like, how do you feel now, Mick, that you're wrong? Are you getting in therapy to get over it? You know, even Mick tweeted about like, you know, contrary to popular belief, I'm not in ontological shock. I'm fine. I'm going to be okay. Like, you know, yeah. And he did a video with Stephen Greenstreet, who is a New York Post reporter, who's also kind of a skeptic, but kind of a different kind of skeptic. He's different than Mick West because he's a journalist. So he's different. And they did a joint podcast to discuss the hearing. And I got to be honest, you know, I'm as skeptical as the next person, but and I love Mick, but he was making some pretty obvious blunders of like observations about the hearing that seemed odd to me. They seemed obvious. Like he was like, well, they just said the same. I don't want to look. I love Mick. I shouldn't do the impression like that. That's an American impression. In Texas, everyone sounds like that. Anytime you go, oh, my friend, we go, oh, we give him that voice. That's just what we do. So no insult to Mick West. That's just the voice we give to everybody. Anyway, he was like, you know, oh, they just said the same thing in the testimony. So like, what was the big deal? No new information. It's like, well, wait a second, dude. Clearly, it's a difference. It's under oath. It's on the record. What do you mean? Like that seems so obvious to me. And they were both. They spent 20 minutes on that. Him and the other guy. I'm just thinking, that's what? Wait a second. Is that not a difference? It must be, right? I mean, how is that not a big deal? That seemed pretty. That just flew over their. You know, they wanted new information. When it's like, well, wait a second. We just got to get the regular information we have on the record. That makes sense, that argument. That seems logical to me. And again, some of these Congress people had never heard of this stuff. So it is new information to them.
Yeah.
Right. I think we have to remember that the hearing isn't for us. We get to see it, but that hearing is really for the Congress people. Right. Yeah. That's really what the hearing's for. Not for us to get new information. Like we're flies on the wall.
For someone, isn't it? So,
yeah. For lots of people. So many people don't know about this stuff. I talked to people that didn't even know the hearing happened this week. Like, what? What hearing? I don't know. You know, they don't know what's going on. And I get it. It's not the mainstream media didn't really cover it as much as I thought they would, to be honest with you. Like they did, but they didn't.
Yeah.
It's weird. They kind of still giggled about it a little bit, you know, some people not. I mean, I don't know. Because again, the claims are crazy. The claims are, if you don't think those claims are crazy, I mean, what are we talking about? We went I mean, what are we talking about? This is insane. These claims
So
are.
what are you saying? The mainstream media sort of mocked the whole process and the idea of it? Oh, right. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, not everybody, but that
Yeah.
was the majority of the way they would bring it up. They mispronounced everything. It just seemed odd.
Okay. Yeah.
Everything
there's a bit-
seemed odd.
yeah.
Like, dude, you can't even get names right. Like everything
Yeah.
was like, it was just like one guy was called OFs. Wait a second, dude. Really? You don't even know the word UFO? That's like what? I mean,
Come on.
don't try to act like you don't, you know what I mean? You don't know what's going on.
Surely that's just playing dumb.
I mean, he was like, yo, what's going on with these UOFs or something? I don't know anything about. Like, what, dude? You don't know UFOs? Get out of here. I mean, that was just ridiculous. That's just like who doesn't know the word UFO? Can we get out of here? Anyway, yeah, they didn't. Of course, News Nation covered it. A lot of other media, print media covered it more than anything. Print media covered it pretty well. I mean, what I was reading from just a minute ago was USA Today. We'll share that article.
I mean, the most serious thing I think that was said is these allegations of violence, right? So
Sure.
And when
It's
David
humans.
Grusch said that people had been harmed or injured and even sort of hinted at, and he was asked by the congressman if he knew if someone had been murdered. And then he said, well, okay, I direct people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities. I mean, and that's, I mean, of course, a very serious accusation.
Very serious.
You know, I mean, this is very serious. I mean, if you accuse someone of being like hurting someone, potentially like murdering someone, I mean, it's very serious stuff. I mean, it's not like to be taken lightly, right? It's not just about somebody's covering up something. This is really like a serious allegation. Yeah.
No, great point. Absolutely. That was a major claim he made. And that actually is part of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's letter as well. So I really encourage everyone to read that whole letter. It's just really long. I can't read the whole thing, but he does bring that up too, that law enforcement is a part of AARO. And that making such claims in the hearing that someone, you know, people are getting hurt, like that's where he claims like, hold on, David Grusch never talked to us about that. Otherwise we would go investigate this, you know. It's a big deal. And he also said he's been threatened, right? David Grusch brought up in the hearing that he's had his life threatened. And the Congress made a point to, hey, we'll protect you. We'll do this. We'll do that. We'll make sure no one comes after you. You know, this is all said in the hearing by different Congress people. They even talked about some different rules they would enact to help him and yada, yada. So, but yes, that accusation is quite huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
Because not only was he accusing UAP or the phenomenon or ETs of causing harm, but he accused our government of causing harm to humans, right? That is, I mean, you're accusing our own government of hurting other people. One thing is corruption, misspent money. Another thing is murder. So yeah, Sebastian, you're right. That was a big part of it.
Or is he just deluded? It's just paranoia, you know? I mean, if he's not lying, you know, is that just him being like, I mean, is he kind of mentally ill or something like this, right? I mean, that's the other alternative, right? So
sure. Yeah.
Some people do think that they are being, you know, persecuted or being like, I know, stalked or followed or threatened, right? When they're really not, right? I mean,
sure. Absolutely. A beautiful
But don't
mind.
you think, I mean, I read some article about the hearing and that sort of writer, that journalist thought that David Grusch was kind of under oath, seemed more reluctant to share some details. For example, in the interview on TV, he was talking about that football field size, you know, aircraft or, you know, UFO they had sort of captured. And he was very reluctant to talk about these details in the hearing.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think
I mean, you seem to be reluctant to go into specifics, right? So like
Sure.
went into the interview.
There was a couple of points in the hearing where he said he referred to the News Nation interview. So that was a little odd. Instead of just saying the information, repeating it under oath, he said, well, I said that in the News Nation interview. You can check that out. Like, like a promotion or an ad to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that, well, they just didn't have enough time to bring up all the different specifics, and he didn't get asked that specific question, so he didn't answer that, right? So, because most of it was just information he was giving based on the questions he was being asked. Not, he gave an opening statement, but granted, that couldn't have everything. So I could see both sides of it. Yes, there were some things he didn't specifically say all the way, but to me, the main things he said under oath, which was the, accusations of murder, and I know where the crashed UFOs and bodies are, and go check it out, and the people who are covering it up. I'll give you the names, the places that to me is the most important. If he didn't give these other details, he also didn't bring up Magneta, Italy, 1933, and Mussolini and the Vatican's involved. He didn't bring up any of that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I mean, maybe he thought, oh well, that's too crazy. That's, I don't know. Or if they would have asked him directly, do you think the Vatican's involved? I mean, he would have said,
I was gonna ask actually,
probably
was he
yes.
asked?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't asked. You had a lot of Congress people asking 3 witnesses. So it wasn't just David Grusch, but I could tell that all the Congress people really just wanted to talk to David Grusch. You know what I mean? Because he was making the most explosive claim, right? The other 2 guys were saying, well, I saw something. I don't know what it is. He's saying, I know what it is. I know where it's at, and I can take you. That's a pretty, you're just like, okay, forget you guys. What's up with you? At that point, right? I mean, that's like if you're people kept comparing David Grusch to a police investigator, investigating like a crime scene. I thought that was a great comparison, because that's what he was doing. He was, he was on this investigative task force, right? UAP task force. That's literally just the name they had. They didn't have some fancy name for it, like, the other ones. And they said, look into this, right? And he did. And that's the case he presented under oath at that hearing, was his police case, if you will. That's the best way to look at it. So that's what he did. Hey, I talked to these witnesses. I got this evidence. Here's my case. This is what I think's happening, So, at that point, there's really no one else to talk to. I mean, the other 2 guys are great. Happy they came forward. Happy they told their story under oath. They're great guys. Thank them for their service. But David Grusch's allegations are really the only ones that need to be focused on. What he said. Nothing else matters.
Yeah.
What he said, go check it out. Lockheed Martin put out a statement saying anything about UAPs, check with the Department of Defense.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's there, because they got accused, private companies got accused in the hearing that they're facilitating this. They're lying to Congress. They're taking money. They're hiding. They're getting accused of a lot of stuff. So that was their statement.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, before the hearing, 2 guys, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, they're very well known in the UFO community. They have a podcast called Weaponized. We've used it in embedded videos. They release statements. How do I say that? Like, so they didn't testify at the hearing, but they gave statements to Congress that got admitted as just part of the hearing. It's not sworn testimony. That is being sort of spread around Twitter, that it's like sworn testimony. It's not sworn testimony. It's just information added to the hearing. And the reason I bring it up is the letter that George Knapp wrote is being talked about on the news, because basically he's making claims as well. He's saying all this stuff happened in Russia in the 90s. And there's all these sightings, and that Russia has this special task force, and they've been fighting UFOs for a long time. And they almost initiated a nuclear missile launch in the mid 90s against America, and that it got stopped at the last second. And they're pretty explosive allegations. And he put them all down in this letter and submitted it as part of this hearing. And that's spreading around right now. That's what people are, because it got leaked. And now people are talking about it. Jeremy Corbell's letter didn't include any information. It was just his opinion on this stuff, and what we should do about it and that sort of thing. So but I'll put a link to both of those letters. You can read them. They're very long. Yeah, they're really long. And yeah. I mean, big day in UFO world.
But what's next? I mean, where does everyone go from here? I mean, what are these sort of
good question.
the repercussions?
Yeah, the next step, according to the press conference that was held after the hearing by Tim Burchett and Representative Luna, they basically said the next steps are what we hope they are, which is, yep, we're talking to these people. We're going to get that information, people, places, and we're going to go look at it. Now, how long that takes, I would assume it's already done. I don't have confirmation of that, but during the hearing, they were like, right after the hearing, we'll meet. So to be fair, they said a few different things. So for instance, an example would be one of the Congress people was like, I'd love to meet with you. We need to get a skiff. Like we need a secure room. Right. And if you have, and David Grusch is saying, if you have the correct clearance, I can talk to you about this and give you those names. Another person he's talking to, he's saying right after the hearing, I'll give you those names. He never goes through the secure part. So there's different Congress people with different clearances. So different people are going to be able to hear different things. And I don't know where that's going to go. Is it going to stop? Because an interesting tidbit is, and I don't mean to dilute everything right now. I know I'm throwing out a lot of information, but Tim Burchett gave an interview over the weekend. He's the congressperson that put all this together, one of them. He said that they got turned down. They tried to meet with David Grusch before the hearing to have a secure meeting, to have those names and places before the hearing, right? So that when he said, I already gave you that stuff ahead of time, right? Like, but that they said that couldn't happen because David Grusch doesn't have his security clearance anymore. So now I don't understand a little bit. I'm a little confused there. You know what I mean? So what does that mean? I mean, he was implying in the hearing that it's the Congress people that may not be able to hear it because they don't have the security clearance. But then Tim Burchett says that David Grusch doesn't have his security clearance. He lost it. He lost it by talking to people outside the government about classified things. And supposedly he lost his clearance. Honestly, the information I read was because he talked to George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, because he met with them and told them things that he then lost his clearance.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? I mean, wouldn't surprise you. Yeah, I mean.
So I don't know what that means now. So now he can't give up the information. He can't, right? Which is it?
Yeah, exactly. What does it mean? And how does that, how is it revoked? Like,
I don't know. I don't know. Exactly. I don't know. It's that. So all that's a little muddy. So what are the next steps? That's what they said in the press conference. Yeah, we're going to meet with him and get all this information and go check out that stuff. So we'll just have to wait and see, what's going to happen. A lot of the Congress people afterwards were all very interested. Everyone was like, more of these, more hearings. Let's do more. I'm going to investigate this and that. But if you really think about it, what other hearings need to happen? He gave you names and places and things. All hands on deck on that. Why are we? It's just odd that they're like, well, yeah, let's go look about this. And what do we? Why? Why would you? Why? I don't know. There's still a lot of confusing stuff that's not adding up. And I know in the UFO community, you're not allowed sometimes to ask these questions. Just go with it. Just believe. It's like, well, wait a second. These things aren't adding up. I'm not saying there's anything shady. That's just all odd to me. So yeah, the next steps are, another hearing and going to check on these places and things. And I'm going to stay on top of that. I mean, I think a lot of people are, to make sure that that's going to happen, but Congress is going on recess for, 5 weeks here. So, there goes that. Not happening anytime. They're like, yeah, we'll go check on the UFOs, but I got a trip I'm taking first. Which I guess, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you do have a vacation plan, why would you just stop it all to go check on these UFOs? I don't know. I honestly don't know. That's kind of crazy. What do y'all think? Y'all, does this add credibility in y'all's eyes more? Like, does it seem more credible? Does it, I don't know.
I think it does, actually. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
does. I think just, at the very top of this conversation, the fact that this is under oath, they have given us what we've asked for, and that's locations and names and all the rest of it. I want to know the next steps, as Sebastian's rightly asked, and I want to, I want to see what comes out of that. And again, it's that I always have this fear. I suppose it's a fearful question. Will we know the outcome of those visits? What's the commitment to disclosing that and the public? Is there any? Do you know if there's any?
It's a great point. No, it's a great question. A lot of people have been asking that. Like, if they go, what if they're told stuff they can't repeat, right?
Yeah.
So then what? Yeah. Then we're right back at square one. They do kind of drop that nugget in their press conferences. So they'll be like, yeah, we're going to go check all this stuff out, and then we'll tell you what we can.
Yeah.
They throw that in at the end, right? We'll tell you what we can, which means exactly what you're getting at. They might be like, well, it's national security. It turns out it's advanced tech, AT, they call it. It's our own advanced tech, so we can't talk about it. We can't even tell you it's advanced tech. We can't talk about it. We just going to say we can't talk about it. And now where everyone's just going to be, screwed.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Could we be right back at the same spot we were? Yes, that's a lot of people think that. A lot of the
back at the usual spot. Yeah, back at the usual spot. Shaw's the damn aircraft, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's it, right? I mean, show it to us, right? So,
I mean, where how far can we pull this thread before that's the only demand we have, right? Again, why? In my opinion, why even right now, after this groundbreaking hearing, why anyone is talking about, well, let's go talk to this person. Why are you, forget all of that. He just told you where the UFOs are. Do everything you can to get over there and get access to that and get it blows my mind that's the X on the treasure map. I mean, it'd be like just like going all around the map, except for the X that's marked. It's right there. It's like, it's right there. He's saying it's right there. Go. Now, granted, they are saying they're going to do that, but they're also saying these other things that it's just like, forget those other things. This is the only thing. But again, could it be we went again? There's also the thing of, okay, we go, and this facility isn't just going to hide it from them. I mean, they're just going to let some Congress people come in on a helicopter and, I don't, what's our approach? What's the nuts and bolts to us going to that place? What does that look like? Is it a whole squad? Is it 2 people going to check at the front desk lobby and asking? Are they sending an email?
Yeah.
Like, what are we, as a Zoom call with the head people? Like, what's the actual process to go to this facility and check it? Are we going to audit it? Is it a full-blown 1,000 people on deck and we're going to go through every crevice of this facility and, find these secret rooms? That seems highly unlikely.
Yeah.
To be honest, that approach, it seems like it's going to be an email or a phone call of, do you guys have this stuff? Oh, you don't? Okay,
never mind. Bye. Yeah.
They said no, guys. We asked and they said they don't have it. So I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, well, we're definitely going to see, we are going to see movement. So this is exciting times. I think we will get an answer, even if it's an answer we don't like. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Please. Does that end the search? Let me ask you that. Do you think that I saw this interview yesterday with James Fox, who, remember Sebastian? I interviewed him on Lone Star Plate for that movie, Moment of Contact. He said, well, I guess I may be out of a job now.
Oh, wow. Did he?
Yeah. So he's like, I got to looking for something else. And I thought that's interesting to say that. Would it just stop for people if we found out, it's real? The thing, are people just going to stop with this phenomenon. That seemed odd to me. Like, why would you? Wouldn't you be investigating further about it? Doesn't mean we would have all the answers about it, but I thought that was an odd approach, or maybe that's his only journey, is just to prove it's real and then I'm out. I guess everyone has their own process to it, but that guy seems absolutely convinced this is it.
Wow.
He is absolutely convinced this is it. So he said he's got a new movie coming out that's got hours of the most crystal clear footage of UFOs you've ever seen. The smoking gun, as he puts it in this interview that I saw. I thought, wow, that's
wow.
Be careful, James. He has a lot of energy. He's like me. He gets very manic and excited, and then it's like, hold on, you got to pull him back, just like me. You got to pull me back. I get too excited, and he does too. This is another thing I thought about. Why not release that footage now? If you have, we talk about we want transparency from the government. The private community is equally as secretive. People hold on to footage for years. They wait to put it in some movie, right, and get it out. And I can see that. I get it. I mean, it's a business, right? We're doing the same thing. But it is odd to complain about transparency in the same breath of, well, I'm holding on to this footage too. I'm going to be releasing it sometime down the road,
Well, yeah, because he wants to make some money off of it.
Yeah, because I saw an interview with George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. It's an older interview where they basically said, yeah, we have a ton of stuff and we're just going to release it as we see fit over time.
Right.
Wait a second. What? Okay. You have all this. I mean, okay. Great. Is that everybody? Everyone just has all this stuff. You're just going to. So, again, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on here. It gets crazier by the minute. But we did have a historical hearing under oath. They put themselves out there at this point.
Yeah.
There's really no going and putting this, Pandora back in the box. This is either going to get a lot of attention and we're going to find out about some corruption and, it'll uncover some things, or it'll just be a joke.
Yeah.
And then the UFO community will really be a joke to people if this goes south, right? Like, it will not be good for the UFO community. So let's hope that
they
doesn't
recognize
happen.
that though?
They don't care.
No,
I think a lot of people don't care. Yeah, they think this is real, right? They think this is real. This is happening. There is no other thing. Anyone else is a hater. I might get hate just for saying what I just said. Right to be fair to the UFO community, just like the government, just like, there's not one monolithic entity, right? There's many people within the UFO community with many different beliefs.
Yeah.
And different interest levels, right? Some people are very, low interest level to super high interest levels. So, but a lot of people are like, if this is done, then I'm done with this. I mean, you can see that on Twitter a lot. Like, this better be it, or I'm done with this stuff, man, because I've had enough. Of this. It's basically the Peanuts, Charlie Brown, where Lucy sets out the football and she pulls it away at the last second every time. Right. They're just like, I've had enough of that, like Peanuts, like enough of Lucy pulling the ball away.
I think the reality is that, I realize it's very frustrating. But this was the classic case here. Again, Mick West posted this on the 29th, so that would have been 2 days ago, right? And so there was the SCU conference, right? The anomalous aerospace phenomena conference. I think these last few days, right? Anyway, and they were discussing certain things, and there was one case here again involving the military, right? A very large UAP crossed the North Pacific, observed by 5 pilots with photos and video, right? We describe a non-military observation of a UAP by multiple observers with 2 cell phones, photos, and a video. The observations are inexplicable on the basis of current human technology, because the craft was at least a mile long, glowing against the dark sky, and was moving at about 2,000 miles per hour with no aerodynamic supporting surfaces. There are no corroborating radar or other observations. Upper limits are placed on the gravitational lensing of background field stars in the vicinity of the craft. Future observations of this kind may possibly be used to unambiguously identify extraterrestrial craft and to constrain the propulsion mechanism. Prior to the observation of this large craft, 4 of 5 orbs or lobes were seen to maneuver over angles of 5 to 10 degrees in seconds and then go into formation before assembling into the large craft or else going inside it, right? And then that has been identified basically as Starlink satellites,
Yeah. A Starlink train, I think he called it.
The reality is, with all this new technology coming up, like for example, Starlink, which is relatively new, right, has been sort of installed over the last, 5 years, right?
Yeah.
It's just more, as space gets more crowded, so to speak, right, there's just more possibility to just get it wrong, right? Because people are not used to it. And then, there are lots of these Starlink satellites, right? I'm not sure. I think there were thousands, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Oh, thousands.
And they're kind of low in the, kind of low in space, right? I think, even if David Grusch is not lying, or the people who told him what he knows are not lying, right? It might be that there is a completely normal sort of explanation for it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no question.
Yeah.
100%.
I think we must never forget that. I think that's always, that's always, I think that's always the option, right? And that's disappointing. It's frustrating, right? So, I think, again, we come back to Avi Loeb, right? Because I think the most promising thing there that I've ever seen is what he's doing, right? Which is not as, you would say, sexy, right? Because just some sort of bits and pieces he found in the ocean, right? But it seems to be still the most promising thing, right?
Correct. But it's legit, right? Like, it's like, yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of his, part of his project is to help eliminate the Starlink systems, because he wants to put cameras that, are lower in our atmosphere, capturing data lower in our atmosphere, so we can separate it from satellites and all these Starlinks going out. Because yes, I think a lot of these sightings are Starlink satellites. Absolutely. 100%. People go out with these night vision. There's all these YouTube videos of people go out in the desert with these night vision, and they look up and let's see all these things moving, and it's Starlink satellites, just satellites moving. So yeah, I think that even happens on like Skinwalker Ranch, the show. They mistake Starlink satellites and Mick does a great job of map data. He can physically show the exact route, and it's like, that's the thing you just saw. So yeah, that guy gets so much hate. It is crazy. He doesn't deserve it. It's insane. It's insane. He ignores it all. He does a great job of handling it, to be honest with you. But yeah, we clearly need people questioning this movement. They just think his heart's not in the right place, and it's just clearly not the case. Maybe
I think it's just, I think what we wanted to be, we wanted to be sexy, we wanted to be, what we want really is Man in Black, right? That's really what we want.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Like ugly, violent aliens on Earth, cool tech and, cool abilities and everything. But it's probably not that, right? It's going to be very, I don't know, not very sexy at all, just very maybe unassuming even, right? But sensational nevertheless, right? Well, Avi Loeb, fine. It's incredible, right? So I think, and then everybody gets their hopes up, and then they're very disappointed again. So it's like a vicious cycle, right? People get like emotionally charged, and then they kind of crash down again because it has all been identified as, some Starlink satellites, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look, people have responses to that. Just to play devil's advocate, they'll go, yeah, no, that's true. There's Starlink satellites. But what about my sighting? I was in the woods. It was 10 feet above me. It was circling. What about that one? Right. It's like, well, what do you say to somebody? Okay, yeah, yours is different. Or the person that says, well, I actually got taken on board and abducted, and that, clearly wasn't a satellite, so it's like, where do you go with this stuff? People will just throw their own experience at you.
Yeah.
Basically, that's a huge thing in this community. They just throw their own experience at you to trump you. But that's the thing. People are just fighting back and forth. At the end of the day, there's only one thing that matters: evidence.
Yeah.
Real evidence. And without that, it's still a theory. I know if you had your own personal experience, you can't expect other people to base their world view on your personal experience. That's crazy. Why? That's insane. So, we need proof, unfortunately, and evidence. And yeah, it could be very disappointing for people. Again, we could find the answer. We're knocking on the door now. So we better be careful of what we're asking for. We could be told exactly what people don't want to hear, which is, it's satellites or advanced tech, or I really think that's a strong possibility. And I think people need to prepare themselves for that. It could literally just be advanced tech that people are confused about, man.
Yeah.
Why is that a crazy option to bring up? Why is interdimensional beings less crazy?
I mean, saying it out loud is just, it really makes you question it, doesn't it?
Yeah. But in the UFO community, that's crazy. You're crazy if you think
crazy. Yeah.
It's advanced tech from China or ours. What are you, crazy? It's interdimensional beings. That's the most logical thing it is. And look, and I get their basis is, well, these things demonstrate capabilities that clearly we don't have. And you go, okay, I get your argument, right? Yeah. But you also have to consider that it could appear that they have those capabilities, not necessarily that they have those capabilities. Well, what about the radar data and visual support and this? And when you combine it all, okay, I understand that, but that can all be wrong.
Yeah.
If we're just throwing out every possibility, I think, right? If you're going to say that this is a possibility, then you have to say this one is too, equally. If we don't know what it is yet. If we don't know what it is, then every possibility is equal. Now, one might be you just think is more probable based on reference to what we've already seen or experienced, which is advanced tech hours, not extraterrestrial. What reference do we have for that? Zero. Why? So why do our brains go there? Why does our brain take us to interdimensional? Why? What are we? What is taking us there? Are people really can they really be that confused? That seems odd to me as well, just as odd as the other side of it. So that's why this is so fascinating to me. How can so many smart people be so confused about this stuff? Wouldn't they question it? Like you or I, right? Like us guys, like if we got information or documents or shown a photo, wouldn't we really question it to make sure? Like, wouldn't David Grusch really make sure that this was what it was before he comes out in public and puts his whole reputation on the line here? That seems odd, right? Wouldn't you triple check that, quadruple check that? Maybe even, you know what, guys, before I come out, I got to see one of these things. I got to ride in one. I got to test drive it before I just come out and say that this is actually happening. I don't know. It just, all that seems so odd.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know. Anyway, all right, that's my final thoughts, guys. What do y'all have? Anything else on this?
Just that I agree. Everything you've just said. Nothing to add, Patrick.
Yeah, right on. Good. I speak for the people.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I think in conclusion we can say that the hearing was, definitely a step forward. I think it was positive. You could definitely see that people are taking it seriously. It wasn't some sort of show they put on, right? It wasn't fake. They took it seriously. Everybody there was really serious about it. So I think that's a good thing, right? Because it's on a lot of people's mind, right? Obviously, so you can't just discard it as something that's like not important, right? And obviously, very serious allegations were made, as we heard, by David Grusch, you know, so it's something, you know, you just have to take seriously. So that I think was good. And hopefully it will be taken seriously going forward, and there will be more hearings or, you know, revelations made following this initial hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're going to do that. They're going to have more hearings. They're going to check up on this, and we'll keep you guys updated and let everyone know what's happening. You know, what if we found the aliens or not, I guess. That'll be the title. We found them.
I think that maybe they had them, but I think, you know, the alien just like may look like jelly, you know, like a pot of jelly, you know. Not like a little green man, but just some sort of, you know, liquid.
That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. Yeah, absolutely. I'm in.
So we hope for this big, you know, this big cinema-like revelation, right? And it's just some sort of little, you know.
That would be crazy. I mean, yes, absolutely. I mean, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, God, the research, the questions, it would be mind-blowing for sure, which is, again, why everyone's hanging on to this, even if it sounds ridiculous, the implications. So, well, good. Well, all right, guys, you know, check out, if you haven't seen the live stream, check out our version of the live stream. It has a whole hearing. If you want to see that again, if you didn't get a chance to see it, check that out. And if not, we got a new episode of Vetted coming out next week, next Monday. The second part to our interview with Avi Loeb, and I'm going to be going over the hearing more in depth in that video. So for right now, check out our first part of our interview with Avi Loeb, and it's a great guy. What a great guy. And it's a great interview. So please check that out. We'll put a link to that. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening and supporting the podcast. Hope you guys, you know, enjoyed the hearing. I'm curious to hear everyone's comments, what they think about it. Did it meet y'all's expectations? And what do you expect to come next? What do you hope comes next? So that's it for me.
Thanks all. See you next week.
Great. Thank
all right,
you.
guys.
Bye.
I'll be good. Have a good week. Bye.
And you.